Hello and welcome to the Carbitrage Podcast, episode 204. I am Eric Berger, joined as always by my co-host Ryan Sinetsky, who you heard it.
Yep, that was me. Hello,
and
viewer,
most
listener.
Minnesotan response.
I find myself, I think 2020 was the year of the for me.
Yep.
I don't at least cognizantly remember saying it really that much in 2019.
I've just kind of said that chronically.
Excuse me, sorry.
It was just totally blank, and then just.
Well, no, I always used but it was always in conjunction with excuse me, sorry.
Yeah.
And now it's just
Yeah, it's a separate. So for me, that was 2014 when I started working for a Japanese nostalgia car.
It's been that long?
Yeah, well, so when I started writing for them, I had was trying to convince Ben that everybody in Minnesota talks like they do in Fargo.
He wanted, because like Ben had talked to me, which I'm the quintessential Minnesotan accent and vocab.
Pretty much.
And so he
especially in
that
casual
distracts
day-to-day
me.
speak.
You can't do that.
Should I just say my microphone?
I
Let
was
me
just telling you
just-
about like brain space. I don't have room for anything. But yeah, so like Ben had talked to me before on the phone, and so heard me and thought every Minnesotan talked like that. So Ryan just copied my accent to put the joke.
This
on
poor
him.
man will have no idea.
I'm
we
the king of
prepared him to come
gaslighting.
to Chicago though, so because he went to Chicago and he's like, I can understand the people.
Chicago.
Because of you. And I'm like, yup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are some similarities.
But I'm really good at gaslighting people. I'm just the king of that.
It's his favorite hobby. And then he tries to get me to join.
The more intoxicated I get, the more I gaslight as well.
I just gaslight all the time. Like if I have a chance to gaslight somebody, I actively look for opportunities, and they're like, yes, I absolutely will do that.
I enjoy the word gaslighting more than I enjoy the act, but both are pretty good.
They're both great, but the act of like convincing people at Nissan stands is are good purchases. Like, things
Gaslighting
like that
people
are
on
hilarious.
Marketplace is actually one of
Yeah.
my favorite things ever, especially if I know they're just a potato.
Yeah, it's just the best thing.
Anyway, before we get into episode, I want to briefly talk about two things.
Yes.
First one, Patreon.
Yes.
Patreon.com/Carbitrage. On this fancy old website, you will find two open-ended levels of support for content consumers like you to support content producers like us, namely hosting costs and beer. You also get some fun swag. If you want to head over to patreon.com/Carbitrage, we would greatly appreciate it. If not, no big deal. We'll keep right on recording. Second segment is beer. I am still finishing off a massive pot of coffee, which I made an error. But then
Coffee products.
next episode, so listen on the next one. We'll be on beer.
Right now we're talking about coffee products.
Yeah,
I have
coffee.
a cinnamon dolce latte. You have a coffee that you made, and Jana has. You need to describe it. Just say your order.
I have a matcha frappuccino with white mocha and oat milk.
There we go.
Substitute.
Yeah, oat milk substitute.
And no whipped cream.
No whip.
Yeah.
They
It's
always
an
ask me
entire
about the
order.
We should calculate how many syllables that order
It
is.
is the longest order. You can't even order it on the app. I mean,
That order is the graphics on a 1980s Japanese K-car.
Yes.
exactly. It is exactly that. It's like on the highest where it's like you look up at the moon, but the moon looks back at you. What will the moon see? It's just like the moon's just like looking at you.
And what does that have to do with the car? I'm like, no, that's the addition.
Yeah, that's the addition.
You look up at
That's
the moon, and the moon
yeah.
looks back at you.
Well, there's
Addition.
Well, I showed you the. I need to get this right. It's the Nissan Laurel Grand Touring Brom Super Selection 2 Turbo.
Yes.
The entire thing is written out on the back of the car, and like it's the size of a Cressida, and the size of the car is based off the amount of space they need to write the badge.
The across the entire rear end taillight lenses started probably just to have a unified canvas
Yeah,
for Japanese car
exactly.
naming. But no, yeah, I'm just drinking a regular old Starbucks dark roast multi-origin bean coffee made in a Maca Master in a kitty cup.
That is wonderful. That cinnamon dolce latte. It tastes like a cinnamon roll in coffee form. Like if you took a cinnamon roll, you put it in a blender, you ran it through a coffee machine. It's the flavor.
I would drink one of those, but I would need a cup of black coffee to double fist with. Because
Yeah,
I would need a palate cleanser
you do.
between, because otherwise it just hangs too much.
It's like a chocolate stout
Ooh,
beer
yeah,
where
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like they're good, but like you can't drink it as a beer. You drink it as a dessert.
It's an oddly good metaphor.
Yeah, that's
Or
kind of what
analogy?
this is.
That's
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah,
But anyway,
very
we-
similar.
Um,
I guess we should do car stuff.
yeah, we should. We are starting 48 minutes after we normally start because
But We're actually recording on a Saturday again.
Yes, which is good. Which
Yay.
is more than it's less than 48 hours after normal, like we did last time.
Yeah, that's true. Wow, that was packed. It was kind of nice to take a break, but yeah.
But so all right, we were running a little bit late, and it is entirely my fault. And by being my fault, it's not my fault. It's Melvin Carter's fault. And
Oh.
if you're wondering who Melvin Carter is, he is the mayor of St. Paul, who I'm blaming for this, because
Why not?
the St. Paul light rail line has totally just absolutely fucked up University Avenue. Just
It's still, we are very much in the early figuring it out phases,
yeah, like
even though it's been in place for
there's
years.
there's some streets that should have absolutely had an overpass for the light rail. Like Snelling and Larpenter at the minimum should have had
There's just not room
overpass.
for it, though.
Or just no, when they were building it, they could have totally tunneled down for that one intersection and tunneled back up.
If they moved the stops, they probably could have.
Yeah, probably. But then it's the thing. Like this is a
We don't know what infrastructure is beneath this. I bet they didn't do it for a reason. That
they
wasn't
could have
cost.
built. They could have done anything.
Anyway,
else.
so what was the issue here? I go through this intersection a
Yeah.
lot, so.
So on like Snelling University, you're trying to turn left from University, either direction on the Snelling.
Yep.
It'll let 3 cars go, light turns, you
And
have
then
to
the
stop.
train goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So there's usually about 12 cars in queue, so you have to sit there for a while. Usually it's about 5 minutes. It's not that big of a deal. However, what I got was let the 3 cars go, train light turns on, train light turns off, ambulance drives by on
Oh.
Snelling, resets the train light, and not only does it reset the train light, it resets the entire cycle.
Right back after your turn.
Yeah, I'm sitting here like second in the row because the person in front of me was a beta and just didn't go, and they didn't just run the light when the ambulance went by like I would have.
Yeah.
Because this is a light I'm willing to get a ticket over because I will go to court over this. And I'm like, I have evidence of a GPS, and like I can easily have dash cam evidence of me sitting at these lights for 15 minutes sometimes. That's exactly what happened. And so yeah, cycle goes, and it doesn't start with like Snelling or something or the turn lanes, but the train goes, Snelling goes east-west, or not Snelling, University goes east-west, then Snelling goes north-south,
Yep.
then Snelling turns east-west, and then it does University east, left turn, and then stops
And straight at the
University
same
east,
time.
and then
Yep.
I can turn.
Yeah.
And so that was a total of 12 minutes. I look at my phone because I've been playing this like little Star Wars game on my phone because I downloaded it because I was bored one day. And it takes me about 12 minutes to get through everything. 12 to 15 minutes. I played 2 rounds of like player versus player battles on this while sitting at this light. And those are 7 minutes a pop. Like, I spent a lot of time at this light. So yeah, I apologize, and you had to sit in this moderately warm room.
Yeah, it was a little chilly when I got in here this morning, but the sun wasn't really up yet, and the heater's on too downstairs. Like the slab
Yeah.
is ready. It's also 6 below,
Yeah, I mean, like it's.
and it has been for the
Yeah.
last week and a half.
That's also why
Next Friday is supposed to be beautiful.
I'll be talking about how I feel about this next episode with my announcement that I probably could have easily done today, but whatever. But anyway, it's also February, which means it's Black History Month, and I've been trying to do this every year, but I keep noticing it's February, like on the last recording of February.
Not this year.
Not this year. I do the first recording of February, which is like 2 weeks into February because, hey, I'm trying.
Well, we recorded the other February episodes in January.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
It doesn't make sense to me, and I think about it as I'm sitting down, and I have to like figure out what I'm doing. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to highlight famous African Americans in the automotive world
Okay.
that we aren't thinking about, because like a lot of people like they'll like think of, like I don't know, Exhibit, Funkmaster Flex, like weird things like that, like Snake and Mongoose maybe. Like if you really get into it, like really like people don't think about African.
What about Will I Am's DeLorean? Come
Yeah,
on,
I know,
man.
right? There's nobody really thinks about African American contributions to the American car world, and I really wanted to like.
Oh, Modi does.
Well, Modi does, but he does that in a negative light 'cause it's Modi. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually start out with somebody that actually is quite literally African American. Busy Izrahoa.
Yes.
His real first name is. Oh God, I'm really bad at this. There's an N in front of a D, and I don't know what to do with that. Debizzy. Wait. Neon. No, wait. Lukian. So it's Lukian Nyong'o. So it'd be.
So I'll read it after the listeners.
Nubizzy. It's Nubizzy.
Ndubiss.
I think it's Nubizzy. I think it's Nubizzy because I think the D would be silent. I'm not sure. But anyway,
At least it doesn't have an exclamation mark.
Well, I can do the exclamation because that's just like, it's a click. Like, that makes sense. Like, I got that.
Mm-hmm. We should write PC and tell them to add that.
No, I need to figure this out. Like, I should have done this. I should have done this at that stupid light. Like, figure out how to.
But
this is
playing
like
Star Wars
game. I know, right? But anyway, so I want to talk about him because this is one of the people where, like, everybody kind of knows him for one thing. Like, what do you know Busy for?
Chemistry, fuel.
Yeah,
Yes,
the fuel.
the fuel thing. Yeah, like most people know him for his 1,000 horsepower minivan.
Yeah.
Porsche people know him for his Porsche stuff, and Honda
Well, it depends
people.
on what era you found out about
Exactly, and so
it.
I
In the
found out.
90s, they're like, oh, he's the Honda engine builder.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do is let's just kind of start out with like where he came from because he's actually his parents were both scientists that came to America from Nigeria. He actually has a master degree in Earth System Sciences, which is fuel chemistry and carbon-based chemistry. And then he's also got a doctorate in international marketing.
I did not know that he
Yeah,
was
I
a
did not
doctor.
know that either. That's super cool. But so Busy actually made a name for himself in the 90s because that's when he like first got into drag racing, and what he was doing was when everybody was doing like engine swaps, they were just going, B16 swap real quick, spend $7,000, instantly gets into the 13s, whatever. He actually had a 1.5 liter CRX, like mild CRX, that he converted to run on a carburetor and race gas, and was actually running like 11-second quarter miles in that. And then on top of that,
Well, he was building single cam Fs too.
yeah, and so that was later. But this is a single cam D series, and he was running 11s on it, and no nitrous or anything. Everybody thought he was on nitrous and everything, but he's like, no, he's like, it's literally all motor. I'm saying it's all motor. It's all motor, and
It's all motor.
yeah, he held like the quarter mile record for the 1.5 liter for like might actually still stand. I don't know what it currently is, but like,
Well, who's messing with a D15?
nobody
Nobody.
ever does a D15. And so what he was doing on top of that, on top of like delivering L's with this 1.5 liter engine, he's also doing his homemade race fuel that, again, you have to remember, he's a chemist. He had homebrewed it to smell like grapes when he would pass people. So, yeah, genius. They actually had to write a rule in the class that the fuel had to be available over the counter because of that. And so that's actually, it was around that time that he swapped over to his Honda Insight, which he was running because, as we know, it's got super low drag coefficient. And he went to another forgotten about single cam, the 1990 through 1993 Honda Accord F22A series engine, which is non-VTEC, no nothing. Like,
It's the big block D series.
yeah, it's basically what it is. It's a Honda big block. It's 2.2 liter. He made 350 horsepower on it. He built it for his Super Street Engine Builder Championship, and then he put it in his drag racer. And he ran like a 960 in it. Like, he had the single cam Honda like quarter mile record for like a decade with that. And again, it might still stand. I'm not currently up to speed on it, but in the early 2010s, like, that single cam like Insight was untouchable. And about that same time, he was also getting notoriety for these headers he was building for Prelude engines for the H22. And a lot of people in the forums were like, this is totally made up. Like, there's no way that this is a real thing. Because he comes out and he's got this goofy-looking header that costs like $800 in 2008. And he was claiming it made 20 horsepower with a tune on a completely stock engine. Like a stock engine with like a Honda like S600 in it, like soldered in. And you would make 20 horsepower like that. And it's like, on a Honda, you put a header on a car, you're lucky to get 5 horsepower, maybe. And that's like full exhaust, you might get 11. So you're not getting any
That's
power.
a lot NA still.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're looking at a 100 horsepower engine, that's
a significant come up.
Huge come up of power. But also, like, that's less than half of what Busy was saying that he was getting.
Right.
And so people were like, we don't believe it. And like he would show his dynographs and people were still not believing him. And then other people were buying them and they were getting very similar dynographs. Like sometimes like, 15 horsepower and the car had like 200,000 miles on it and like bad valve guides. But still like, it's still like, it's like blowing.
A Honda from the 90s?
I know, right?
What?
But he's like, you're still getting like insane amounts of power from these headers. And so he actually, of course, Honda people being Honda people, they found every reason to be mad about it because the headers were beginning to crack because of the welding that they were doing because he was trying to keep the costs down. He would actually pay for people to ship their headers back and he'd re-weld it. But it's just one of those things where it's like he really wanted to do a specific kind of stainless steel so they were more durable in the long run so it wouldn't rust. Eventually, another brand called PLM, Private Label Manufacturing, they made a version of it that used a more mild stainless steel. That was...
Busy was probably using 304 and they used 409.
Yeah, exactly. And theirs just didn't crack. And that's why... And people went with that one and it was like half the price. And basically like, that's fine because this has been nothing but trouble for me. And besides, I made my name here. Like,
Yeah.
I did my purpose. And kind of his entire career has been him doing what people have said is not possible. Because at that same point in time when he built the F-22 for the racing, he was making these headers, AMS Turbo, which is a Evo tuner, they said that Busy only built a all-motor F-Series engine because he doesn't know how to tune turbos. And so he, of course, takes that as a personal challenge.
Yeah.
So he buys a 1.5-liter Wagavan.
Oh, for sake.
Yeah, and so he buys a 1.5-liter Wagavan. It was a 1.6 because it was a RT 4-wheel drive, and he turbos it, makes 700 horsepower, passes California Carb, and daily drives it. So like he logged like 100,000 miles on the thing, like just to prove that it was reliable to AMS. And like AMS, and the reason he did 700 horsepower is AMS they won the engine tuner build off thing in like 2007, 2008ish.
Yeah.
And he built this D series to make to the number, like to the exact horsepower number, exactly what AMS built. And he goes, "There's plenty on the table left.
Right.
Like I'm going to show you."
But
this.
I wanted it to be reliable.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's like, there's plenty on the table left for me to make, but I'm gonna build this to be reliable. I'm gonna daily it just to prove to you. And he literally dailied it for like until he built his Odyssey. And like,
I think until he built the Porsche. I think he built the Porsche first, and he dailied that for a while.
well, no, he had the Odyssey. He still had the Wagavan, and like the Wagavan was like being used for like picking up his kids from school.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so and then he replaced that with the Odyssey, and Honda gave him a Odyssey for $1 to build. And that brings us to the Odyssey, 1,000 horsepower on that, totally insane. Honda knows, Busy Motos.
Manual.
Yeah, manual, like Odyssey, is just totally insane. He also built a CRZ because Honda like had this like the CRZ hybrid, which like did not do well at all. Because like nobody
Make it cool, please.
like it was like that was like right in the height of Honda's era, where it's like we know better than what our enthusiasts ask for. We're not gonna do an SI put a K series. It's supposed to be a hybrid, and like they're really like trying to shove a square peg in a round hole. And Busy Moto did prove that you can make power on it. He actually made 533 horsepower on one. And it was
I mean, that makes sense, because architecturally it's really similar just to the regular L15.
Yeah, it literally was, actually. And, like, he actually did find a lot of pioneering things with L-Series single-cam tuning. Like, you can actually make power on a CRZ by putting a Honda Fit intake on it. It's the same engine architecture. And so a lot of that did kind of trickle into the Honda Fit community. But it's like one of those things where it's just like nobody cares about the L15 single-cam. Like, nobody really cared about that engine until they started putting the SI, and now people care about it.
Right.
So he was just ahead of his time with it. And even the modern ones, the dual overhead cam, it's a completely different engine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he did build that, and that should be noted. Today, he has his Porsche that he built that you mentioned.
Yeah, he built that before the Odyssey.
Yeah, and that was actually a really cool build because he built that with no exhaust and no catalytic converter and like twin turbo and passed California carb.
And he used an M96 instead of a Metzger.
Yeah,
just to prove that engine's actually pretty good.
Yeah, like, it's just hilarious. And then he also put that into a what did he put that into?
I think
A
it's
930?
a 964. I think it was a 964.
It wasn't typically water cooled.
It was an air cooled car with a water cooled engine.
That's what I was
which
saying.
is
Yeah,
just like
it is a super weird build, and it's just hilarious. And now he's got his 935 style EV 911 that he built. That's super cool.
Yep.
And I love that. My favorite thing is like almost all of these cars he actually uses. So like the 935 he's using, and then
I think
like
he still has the wagon van and uses it. But
I think he's got one because he built two wagon vans.
Okay.
He built a front wheel drive one and a all wheel drive one. And originally that D series was in a front wheel drive one, and he did a very similar build in the all wheel drive one.
Okay.
And he still does have his Insight. He just hasn't touched it in years. So Busy is definitely one of the coolest people I've ever heard of. I mean, and if you think about it, on top of that, like he's first generation Nigerian immigrant, which is like super cool. He actually went back to Nigeria to learn to get his initial Earth System Sciences degree. He got that at a university in Nigeria. So he isn't just like totally Americanized. He actually goes back to Africa and does like cool stuff for like the Nigerian community. He also has a nonprofit that he set up for African immigrants and stuff to get into chemical engineering like he did. So he's actually doing a lot of really cool stuff for the community. Definitely one of the coolest dudes in the car world ever. And one of just like the biggest contrarians I've ever met. So I absolutely been a fan of Busy since high school.
Well,
I
these
love the
engines,
guy.
they just don't make power, Busy. Well, Jay, interesting you should say that.
because
originally it had 78 horsepower, and this is making 943. But it's reliable.
I just love that he just does things that are impossible. It's like, hey, I'm going to take this CRX, I'm putting it on a carburetor.
Busy's entire life dialogue is just mic drop.
It's all he's ever done. Like, he's like, I'm going to take a CRX. I'm not going to do a B series, so you don't need to do that. But if you figure out how to tune this engine, you can just make power with it. And he did.
That's still a Honda engine. It's probably going to make power.
Yeah, and he's done that with everything. And he's done a ton of stuff with Hyundai, too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. No, so he's built, like, Sonatas and Elantras and stuff that are, like, he's been, like Hyundai's, like, in performance, like, technician and stuff. So, like,
That makes a lot of sense.
A lot of the cool things that In Performance did were based off of designs that he first, like, did for them. So, like, when they made the Sonata, like, really nice, finally, and they did the Turbo Sonata, they actually gave him a dollar car for him to build one, and he actually built it into a time attack car for World Time Attack series.
Cool.
And so he actually did set some lap records with the Hyundai Sonata.
I remember when those came out, I'm like, you were giving these people a 273 horsepower sedan?
Google Bisimoto Hyundai, and you'll actually see like some of his cool Hyundais. So like he's like, I've like seen him, I'm like, no way. Like, and I'm like, why would he do that? And I look at him like, oh yeah, they're all.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, they're all just they're based off Mitsubishi, so they're like they're capable of making power. But I just love that like totally fits like Bisimoto being a contrarian.
Yep.
It's just I'm not gonna build an Evo. I'm gonna build a Sonata.
I think that's an Elantra.
Well, that's the Elantra, but he did the Sonata first.
I googled the Sonata and I came up with a ton of Elantra.
That's a Sonata.
Yes, it is. Okay. Same color scheme?
Yeah, 2015. So this is when they still had the Evo. Like he could have built an Evo, and he chose to build a Sonata. It's hilarious. It's like
all right. I mean, I forget the actual like code name for that engine, but I think other than like the significant issues the 2.4 GDI had, which were unrelated, they're actually pretty solid.
All their issues are based off of the rotating assembly design being like cast. So it's like a major issue, but like the architecture of the block itself is actually a good block. It's just the rotating assembly is problematic, and that's the limiting factor on these cars. That's how a lot of people don't tune them. It's like Honda, the limiting factor is like a camshaft. Like it's easy to replace.
My distributor is being wonky.
Yeah, let's do a coil and plug. Like, that's easy. It's like, I need to completely tear my engine down to nothing to be able to overcome this Achilles heel. Like, that's where you run into issues. But
yeah, I hear you.
He also, I think he's done stuff like to like prove the reliability of them on their stock internals too, which is pretty cool.
I'm guessing it's user error more than a design fault.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Most people that like, I noticed like, so like, I just started in the Honda community when I was like a kid, and like I know there's just like things that like I've like done. I'm like, yeah, you always tune your car, you always get a standalone ECU, like you just do these things. And then I'm like, I go to the Subaru world, and they're like, oh yeah, you put in like a 20 volt or a 20 amp like fuse here, and then it won't pop the fuse, and then it won't blow up. I'm like, that's not a good idea. Like
That's got 22 gauge wire. Yeah, it's been fine.
Yeah,
in my Forester.
yeah, you run bigger fuel injectors. Do you tune it? No, you just run bigger fuel injectors. That's not how that works.
What you do is you just put a rising rate fuel injector.
Fuel pressure regulator. Yeah, exactly. It's just like you just
like
trick
the
it.
good old days.
Like what the? I'm like sitting here like when I first got into Subarus, I was like, what the fucking year is
No
this?
wonder
It's
they blow up.
1997. Like they make these things, use these things. Like that's expensive. I'm like, you know what's really expensive is your shit blowing up.
That's why every Subaru for sale
It's like
has a bad engine.
Yeah, because like they always blow up. Like I'm convinced that Subarus can be reliable. It's just Subaru people don't make them reliable. Like it's entirely plausible that like you could take.
Yeah, there's plenty of WRX bug guys around with 250,000 miles. There are.
Yeah, like it's like the totally stock ones. There's plenty of them, but it's like as soon as like somebody like tunes them, it's just like, oh yeah, I just welded the wastegate shut. I'm like, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, bro, it's so fast.
For 5
All
minutes.
the running Subarus belong to anthropologists.
Yeah, seriously. Like it's just that stock Subarus are like some like the most
and are
granola
titled
hippie.
in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Busimoto should start like tuning Subs. That'd be great.
I don't want him to because I like Busy. Okay.
Well, he also works with trash. I mean,
That's true.
historically.
He could make Subarus good.
Yeah, like he made the water cooled the IMS bearing engine cool. Like he could do anything.
I'd be curious because like it seems like the hard ceiling for like an EJ series engine is like 450 wheel,
I would say yeah, like 650 crank is about the highest I've ever seen.
which is
I've
probably
seen
like
a
450
couple.
wheel.
I've heard of a couple in the thousands, but it's like that's the thing. Heard of.
I was
And it's
gonna say
also,
that's
like,
got to be like a billet engine.
Yeah, exactly.
like-
It's not like a realistic one. It's not like
No.
1,000 horsepower Supra
But-
where it's like bolt-ons.
I think if Busy did it, it'd be like he would find the design flaw in that rotating assembly, which is probably honestly just the case splitting apart.
Yeah.
But like I bet he would make 700 horse on a
Well,
stock case.
So, I know on like EJ 205s and stuff, actually the oiling of the rod bearings is problematic because on the STIs, I can't remember if it's cross-drilled or non-cross-drilled, but basically what happens is when the engine revs higher, it actually starves the rod bearings of oil.
Great.
Yeah.
Just probably cavitates or something.
Yeah, it cavitates the oil, so you get these little air pockets. And
So
that's,
AccuSump your Subaru and maybe it'll survive.
yeah, and that's the thing is I'm sure Busy would just like find a way to do it. It'd be like some stupid, like super simple fix. Like
What I
he's
did
like,
is I made a new oil pump.
no, it wouldn't even be that. It'd be like I have this additive. I made it out of this stuff under
call
my
it
sink.
Grape power.
Yeah, it is great because when you do your oil change, your oil it smells like cherries.
Busy secretly started Royal Purple.
Yeah, seriously.
It
it's
all
great.
used to have grape scent. No, that's not true. All right,
I
so
see
switching.
a lot of legal jargon.
Yeah, so switching topics briefly. It's kind of EV related, but now that we have a new president here, stuff like this is going to start to show up, and it's relating to not just EVs, but I'm pulling a snippet of some new legislation that got introduced 2 days ago.
Okay.
And what I'm focusing on is the electric vehicle purchase tax credit. So this has been a thing historically. It was a $7,500 tax credit for a battery electric vehicle or a $3,500 credit for a plug-in hybrid before.
Okay.
Limitations where you could sell up to, I think it was, 600,000 units or something like that. And once you hit that, your credit would go away the following quarter. So Tesla hit that in 2016.
Okay.
General Motors hit it in 2017. So they kind of are drawing a short stick right now because they've got to offer a better product.
Is it corporation or is it company?
Company. So like
So-
Cadillac, General or Chevy, like all under that
So
one.
what they could do is like GM could totally just get around this currently by being like Volt is its own brand. Announce the Bolt is its own brand. You
No,
can buy
'cause
them
it-
at the Chevy dealership.
If it's not a General Motors corporation, yes.
Oh, so it is corporate.
Yeah, GM
Okay,
is
yeah.
one thing.
That's what I was wondering, because I wasn't sure if it's like Mark, where it's like,
No.
Acuras
So like
and then Hondas.
Geely's or Geely, however you pronounce
Geely,
it.
yeah.
Like if they
Oh,
sold enough
God,
Polestars, they're done.
Yeah.
But they won't, obviously. FEV was full if 16 kilowatt hours. Oh, I did not know that. Okay, so Scott's correcting me. The original tax credit was if you had a plug-in hybrid with a battery capacity over 16 kilowatt hours,
Oh, okay.
you got the full tax credit.
It's 200 before, now it's 600.
There's so much verbiage in here. I'm sure I'll screw it up, so hopefully he corrects me. But the new one, it's really interesting. And to Scott's point, no outlets have covered this part yet. They have a provision for used EV purchases now.
Okay.
So
that's actually really cool. 'Cause
They
I don't want
require
a new one.
they require your income to be fairly low, 70,000 per household in certain circumstances, or 60,000 per household in a lot of others.
I
and-
can make my.
or single, like jointly. You guys probably qualify for this, but alone you might not.
Well, no, I mean,
or 30,000
alone. So that's the thing is like it depends on like if I rent 3 cars per day versus 4 cars, then I will qualify.
Right. If you guys file jointly, you would qualify.
Oh, okay. So, but if you're
Otherwise-
alone, it's 60.
If you're alone, it's 30 or 40.
Oh.
But if you're together, it's 60 or 70.
So you have to be working poor to really get the used.
Yeah, but this is designed to get
That's actually really cool.
used
That's
electric
good.
vehicles
Yeah.
into the hands of low-income families, which, let's be honest, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's exact. And plus, like, there's a lot of like EVs that are quote unquote cool, and a lot of luxury vehicles where, instead of owning your Escalade, you can get the Tahoe EV or the Tahoe hybrid.
Well, I mean,
which
just
they have a-
think
I
about
they
like
have a
all these
plug-in version of that.
city dwellers living paycheck to paycheck in their rental, and they've got this like clapped out GMT 350. I'm like,
Yeah,
go buy
seriously.
a used Leaf. The government will give you potentially $2,500
yeah.
towards your $6,000 car,
That's a great idea.
and like you can still finance something like that. So
this is wonderful.
that's like I couldn't believe because like I got sent this link by
Well,
Scott
plus there's a lot of
earlier
cool
this week, and
like all the Mercedes and stuff like that. That
Fiat 500e, all this stuff qualifies.
I'm thinking of. I'm also putting into context. I'm just gonna say like hip hop culture where the luxury vehicles, SUVs, stuff like that. You have those are considered cooler. Like, and that's like the cool thing to get.
so the
Whereas,
B
like,
class EV then.
That's what I was thinking. Is like things like the B class. I'm not sure if Cadillac. What was the Cadillac?
the ELR?
The Cadillac version of the Volt.
I just said it.
It's the ELR.
ELR.
I can't remember. They're all
That's
just
fine.
they're
They're
number soup or letter
Way
soup.
too expensive. I
Oh,
don't
are
know
they?
why I
Okay.
looked into it, but they're stupid expensive. They're like almost 20 grand, and a Volt is like 6.
But I mean, still, Volts will be all over the place.
Which is good because a
great.
Volt is a great car.
And these
Like
are
Bolts
this is,
even they're sub 10 grand.
Yeah, and I think like if you want to talk about like a way to be upwardly mobile, if you have a reliable means of transportation that's fuel efficient, like nobody talks about this, but if you're looking at a truck, and your truck gets 9 miles per gallon, so it's 9 times 3, and then your grocery store is not near your house, so it's gonna be a 10-mile drive.
Yep.
So it's to be at least a gallon of gas. It's to be $3, $4
trip like that
to get
Easily costs $8
yeah,
round trip.
and that's before you even get to the grocery store.
No, that's round trip.
Well, I mean that's before you the
Right,
money.
but that could just be your work commute and like.
But
if you don't plan your
what I
trips.
mean before you get there, I mean is like before you account for the amount of money you will spend in the grocery store. Is you have to account for this will be $8 to get to the grocery store and back, and then that's $8 out of my food budget. That's $8 out of my bills. That's $8 out of my credit card, out of student
Even-
loan, out of anything.
When I had the FJ, I was conscious to not drive it down here unless I needed to, because
Yeah.
it was $8.60 on cheap gas to drive that thing down here.
It's insane. Like when I drive the Fiat here, I put on sport mode when I get on the highway and turn it off the second I'm on the highway.
It's not going to change your fuel economy. It just makes it
does,
worse to
actually.
drive. Well, it shouldn't.
So when I'm driving 70 miles per hour at 3,000 RPM, it does actually drop the boost that it makes.
That's dumb.
Yeah. So
More boost.
Well, no, I mean lower boost.
More
for-
boost all the time.
But that gives me worse
Should
fuel
have bought
economy.
an NA car if you care about that.
Well, that's
They
why
get
I
like
like.
5 mpg better. So.
I know, but I mean it's nice to actually 10 mpg better if you include sport mode because it's like a 5 mile per gallon difference.
Or you get like 27?
I get 27 in sport mode, and then I get like 30 out of sport mode.
That's actually
It's a
still pretty good.
noticeable.
Right, but
difference.
you've only had your car in the winter. That will get
true.
significantly better in the summer.
And that's also like that's a noticeable difference.
Yeah.
though. I mean, and that's like even for me, like
I still think that's mainly coming from it, like just moving maps around. I don't think that's actually cutting boost.
I'm not sure exactly what it does. I do know that it does limit your boost, though. That's one of the things it does.
That is dumb. They should
But-
get
Do
rid
you
of
know
that
my
mode.
Sienna makes like 21 mpg, which isn't a ton, but
It's
I
still pretty good
drove
for how big it
down
is.
the same, like, because I'm always driving down to the site. I once rode with my friend Chrissy, who had one of those big trucks that
Yeah.
like drinks gas, and she was like, "Oh yeah, so this is what gas was for the weekend. If you can give me a portion of that," and she said the total was like $200. And I'm like, for me, it's like $60.
Yeah,
Like,
it adds up even with cheap gas. I mean,
And so,
like,
like,
I couldn't, like, my jaw dropped to the ground when she told me how much gas costs for her.
but I mean, to elaborate on that, I mean, in city limits, which is like predominantly where these are going to sell. I
Yeah.
mean, like you look at what these people drive, and it's something they can buy cheap,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is not a fuel efficient vehicle, and trips add up.
Yeah.
And if you use it, even a level 1 charger will get you 30 or 40 miles of range a day, which is way more than these
Oh,
people
wow.
typically
Yeah.
do.
yeah, it's
And like you
things
said,
that
they're
are huge.
very reliable.
Yeah,
So like if you give somebody reliable transportation, the quality of life boost alone, not to
Yeah.
mention just like I don't know, people, there's been studies and you can twist them however you want, but just like the complete lack of NVH like makes people less stressed out.
yeah, seriously.
And it's
yeah.
just like, oh, okay, well
It's
maybe
just like how reliable public transportation does with people living in the city too. Because like, you know, in Minneapolis we have an okay public transportation system, but
it's pretty good.
within the United States, our public transportation is nothing compared to like Europe. Like,
Well, yeah,
nothing's
but it's not
really-
funded by the government like it is in Europe.
Yeah, but it's just like,
And yes, the poorest
It's
should drive
difficult.
EV, Scott. That's
And
correct.
so this also like kind of leads like you said the reliable thing. Like EVs are more reliable, which is huge. And
Yeah.
there's
What-
less maintenance too.
yeah, and so back when I was working at Good Karma, we would get regular, at least twice a week. We get somebody from Northwest Minneapolis, North Loop.
Mm-hmm.
Usually African American person bought a very very cheap Audi that they thought was
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And they hear about reliable foreign cars and like I don't know how this is.
I don't know
like,
how that misnomer gets perpetuated, but
This is another thing that's like really is like a perpetuated misnomer is that American cars are reliable and foreign cars are not, or foreign cars are more reliable than American cars. Weird things like that where it's like when you just lump like all foreign cars versus all American cars, where it's like
all cars can be
you
crap.
you cannot say that. Like
No.
I can't even say Japanese cars are more reliable. I say, generally speaking, you're more likely to find a reliable Japanese car than you are a reliable German car.
Yep.
But I cannot like. There's so many
Bad.
like. There's just so many qualifying aspects of that sentence. I
I
can't
bought
just
an
like
O2
rattle that off.
Murano.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Yikes.
like, that's not a good car. Like, and so one of the things I would do is just like it was so difficult to be like, well, I want a reliable German car. Well, you have to get specifically a manual 2012 Volkswagen Jetta 5-cylinder, 2.5 liter. So that will be your reliable German car, and you need to sell it before it hits 150,000 miles or reaches 20 years old, because then you start running into wiring issues.
Or you find a 6-cylinder manual BMW, or you buy.
And even you have to get like so specific with
yeah,
like
which
with
is
German
why,
cars.
and people don't listen to that. They'll be like,
No.
"Oh, buy BMW." Okay, I did.
Yeah,
I
and
bought
then
a
they got a
320i.
750.
Oh,
Yeah, like,
no,
they got, like-
750 is fine compared to a
I'm
320.
talking a Bengal, like, but I mean, it's still regardless. Like,
Way more reliable than a 320.
regardless, they buy a shit pile.
Yes.
And so what I usually
A
say,
Touareg with cam crank correlation codes.
like what I end up saying is like, you know what, just get a Lexus.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a Toyota. It's going to be reliable. It's going to be luxurious. It's going to, you know what's really luxurious?
Starting
is
in the
getting in
morning.
your car and your automatic climate control works and your car isn't dragging on the ground. Like, you want to know what's really luxurious is not having the left front corner of your car collapse while you're on a date. Like, and that's actually what I said to a guy. And he ended up selling his Touareg that he bought, and he bought a Lexus like ES350, like a front-wheel drive Camry
Yep,
thing,
just
whatever.
fine.
It doesn't.
Mhm.
The dude was so thrilled, and he ended up coming back for like every oil change. Like, you know what? It wasn't a Volkswagen, it wasn't a Subaru, but we had a customer for life because the dude like was thrilled. Like, his girlfriend didn't dump him. Like, that was actually a thing. Like, she straight up, like, when his truck broke down for the last time, she made him walk home.
Great.
Like, I'm like, dude, you need to get a Toyota. Like, just get
Yep.
this. Trust me. You get
If,
the Lexus.
if you need to count on your
Are
vehicle,
there any EV Lexuses right now?
no, they had mild hybrids. But
Yeah,
no
they-
EV
yeah, they-
Lexuses.
they haven't-
CT200 and.
And that wasn't even a mild one. That's one you like, the CT200H.
It was mild. It was not a plug-in.
Yeah. The RX. The hybrid,
yeah, they had
mild.
that. They had a hatch, a sedan based on a Corolla, and the RX, and I think a GS as well. But
Yeah, but I mean, those are all mild hybrids.
yeah,
so none of those would
nothing.
qualify.
I don't think they had any prime.
But I think, yeah, as soon as this is gonna be, I think like right now it's gonna be a little tight for getting. Yeah, UX is actually probably their first EV or
Yeah, that's
PHEV.
coming.
Right now I think that this is gonna be of some help for like getting like volts and stuff into like lower income hands. But I think in 10 years it's gonna be really important.
Well, this probably won't be around in 10 years, but short term, as long as people can find out about this, which
Yeah.
so far I don't know how they're
No.
going to.
Well, and the other thing is like getting it into people's hands. Like, it only takes a few people. Like 20 years ago, you know, only a handful of people were driving Audis in poorer neighborhoods.
Well, I mean, in this
Yeah.
wave of they're going to be third owner low
Yeah.
range EVs and
Exactly.
FEVs now, like they're getting so cheap. Like you can buy one without a credit easily for $5,000.
Bill says
now.
until 2026. It's not going to be 10 years. Always 6 years. That's going to be enough
For
to, like,
the is that for the used credit? That's got to be for the used one, right?
Yeah,
Because
so-
the new one's tiered. I think you
that's
said
that's
it was
still going to be helpful though. That's gonna be
200,000
really helpful.
units, and then it starts dropping until they hit 600,000 units, and then it goes away. But still, I mean, like for Mark, he's buying another new Tesla later
Yeah.
this year. He'll be able to probably use this,
That's
which
great.
is pretty cool.
Good for him. So actually, I want to talk about new EVs as well.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about REE Automotive. If you click on their
I
name,
will. Give me
it
just a
is
moment.
actually REE Automotive.
Is it rotary engine something automotive?
No, they do
Oh.
EV stuff. And what they do is they make these skateboards.
Okay.
And they're actually going public, which is pretty cool. So they're actually apparently gonna have. They've got enough like.
It's not vaporware?
Yeah, it's not vaporware. It's enough of an actual company to go public, which you don't have an IPO unless you actually have a viable product. And unless you really want to just like completely tank your company immediately. So I'm really excited to see that. It's also an Israeli company, which is cool.
Cool.
So yeah, Jewish people doing things. We don't just do your taxes for you.
Well, I mean, it's Israel. There's also
Hello, Max
more than
Weinstein?
Jewish people involved, I assume.
Maybe.
I don't know. But I mean, it's also Israel. It's what Jewish people are known for. is Israel.
FC did a podcast with this company, I think. Oh, interesting.
But what I'm actually really excited for is that this is a car-based skateboard platform that isn't a truck, most importantly. And so I'm very excited because this is going to be great for coach building.
Yeah, I'm
I'm so
excited for the
excited.
time when technology gets good enough where you don't have to have a skateboard with thickness in the middle, so you can actually have a low riding vehicle. Because like you'd look at things like the Polestar, it's a good looking vehicle, but it's very clearly dictated styling language
Yes.
based around the thickness of the battery cell.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought this was like an actual skateboard, and I was like, why is it
Oh,
so big?
no,
No,
sorry, they just
they're-
call it a
I know.
skateboard.
Yeah, they're called skateboards because they look like that.
I'm so confused because he was talking to me about this the other day, and I thought he was talking about an actual skateboard.
A coach built skateboard.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Interesting. So this, not only is it a skateboard, but it's split into quadrants, and each segment, if it's damaged, is just unbolted, and a new
That's-
segment is
Oh,
bolted
Yeah,
in.
That's
that,
great.
I think that's super cool. Also talking about
Racing
like,
teams came up with this a long time ago. I think,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, it's even in Ford versus Ferrari. They figured out like it's way quicker to just have an entire suspension
Corner, yeah.
assembly, and then you just bolt it on. It was for brakes. They decided it was easier to change all the shock
It
bolts,
makes sense. It's
everything
four bolt.
for brakes.
have
It
4
was
bolts
quicker.
instead of
And this will
just
be
have it ready.
cheaper, and there's less risk. You know, if you have a shunt in your car, like, well, I don't know how far the damage went, so this will replace all of it.
Well, also, I mean, if you think about how much more time consuming it is to repair EV stuff, like actual electrical stuff, than it would be a
For
mechanical
now,
repair.
anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, as opposed to like replacing a strut or replacing an axle or a diff.
All that
like,
stuff's the same, though.
But well, I mean, what I'm saying is that these are things where like you can rebuild a diff in an hour easily once you remove it. Whereas like for a mechanic, it might be more difficult. It can be harder to source parts. What you can do is you can have a loaner corner, like at your shop. Like here, we'll give this to you. Don't crash it. Give us your insurance, and you can drive your car while we fix your thing, and then we'll give it back to you.
I mean, it's still probably fairly labor intensive, so.
But I mean, that's the thing is like it's one of those things where if you have a larger repair, like say something like what this would be the equivalent of is like something like an engine out repair. We have to like rebuild the engine. Like this is basically here's a loaner engine to put in your car.
Or even like a cab off service for a truck. Because
exactly.
I mean, you will have to pull the body off to get to that.
And so like these are things where, you know what, instead of having this car take up space at our shop, we can just give them this loaner corner and then send it out the door, and then we can have less overhead at our shop, which is me kind of cool.
Scott's saying no motor hump, but there are 2 very clearly visible motor humps in the back.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, it's still very low profile. I don't think that would really intrude in space where you actually care.
No, not at all.
But
I mean, it's also kind of where you would put like a seat.
And considering this must have at least some crash safety thought put into it, I'm guessing. I mean, the thickness, it looks like it's probably sufficient. And the fact that that might actually help for your, like, if you were to coach build something on this, maybe you'd be grandfathered in and not have to do as much for crash safety.
I think that's another thing. Well, also with coach building, I mean, you're buying the base car. Mm-hmm. And so, like, so how Zagato gets around it is the car is crash tested as an Aston Martin Vanquish or something.
Sure. It's got a VIN, man.
Yeah, it's got its VIN. It's a Vanquish. Well, now you're choosing to modify it. So whatever you do is your problem. It's like
as long as
it's like putting a body kit on your car. A body kit might be less safe, but
the rules are always funny because you look into it and it's like you need to maintain the firewall and the headlight buckets. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, easy. We'll just ship you those in a bag.
Exactly. And so, like, I think with like coach building here is, I think it's really cool for the future of luxury cars, for performance cars, for things like that, for just car culture, is you can really bring back a lot of the customization that people are fearing that you're going to lose. It's like, oh, everybody has to drive a box. Like, no, you don't have to drive a box. Like, actually, it's more the 1950s where everything has like 150 horsepower maybe. But now,
and your mods will fit a ton of different models too.
Yeah, and then now
so there's incentive for third parties to produce.
Exactly. Like everything makes more or less the same outpower, and everything is now a platform that you can easily modify. Like in 1950s cars, like because nobody cared about lead poisoning. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna take these like Lincoln Continental headlight buckets and stick it on my like Tri-5, and then I'm just gonna put it on with a bunch of lead.
Oh, like, yeah.
It's just like it's not good for you.
Stunning how long leading was a thing.
Yeah, I know, right? Oof. But I mean, like, it's one of those things where it's like, well, now you can actually go and do it, and with 3D printing, like that's like the modern leading. So you can like 3D print like different like body panels and stuff like that. So I think it's gonna be really cool, you know, to see what this technology is gonna do 20 years in the future. Yeah. I'm very, very excited for the future of the automotive world because of this. And now it's actually a publicly traded company, so it's a real thing. So
perfect. Well, I hope it actually survives. I'm sure it will, and we'll probably even see skateboards in the next 20 years. Because I mean, the first GM skateboard concept was probably almost 20 years ago now.
Yeah, so we'll continue to see them.
Again, I keep getting excited about skateboards.
Well, I mean, there are electric skateboards, which are terrifying.
Yeah, the boosted board that Tom has. I'm like, no, that's you.
That's you. Like, I've already lost enough of my teeth. I don't need to lose more.
Anyway, my next story doesn't have a link. I was just browsing through Reddit of all places, and I was looking for topics just because that's what I do in the mornings before podcasts. And I came up with something that I just wanted to read because it was an interesting headline. It's like, why is premium fuel so much more expensive than regular now than it used to be? And I'm like, that's a good point because like back in the day when I was driving in high school, I'm like, mid-grade was 8 to 10 cents more than regular, and then it was 8 to 10 cents more usually for premium. And then I was reading through the comments. I'm like, oh, it's actually really interesting. And a lot of it was down to like, well, if you look at the percentage difference, it's actually pretty much right. But like oftentimes now I'm seeing premium $1 more a gallon than regular.
These are my two theories. One, the additives in it is that you can make a 87 octane equivalent gas that just works for your Mirage. But then you get something like a Corvette that requires a 91. Well, that 91 requirement is much more strict, and so you don't want people, you know, that have a older car like a Testarossa or something, and then you put in there your fuel and it's got all sorts of crazy additives and it starts pinging constantly, even though it says it's 91. Maybe those additives don't work, and
I think the premium is more likely to have the additive package.
Well, I mean, like, they all have additives, but it's exactly which ones. That's one of them. The other one is fuel base oil is more expensive than it was when we started, or I guess not anymore. I guess it doesn't make
It's
sense.
not
That
too
throws
far
that
off
that,
right now.
that one that kind of throws.
Right
my,
now, it's a good question because
my
gas is
my
about
argument
the
is-
same price as
my-
it was in high school.
I guess my argument would be like maybe premium is more profitable.
I'm sure it's that, and I think
think
you're
it's
onto something with
profits.
additive packages.
Yeah.
I think it's just like they did in 2008. All the gas prices went up, so that margin increased.
Yeah.
And they just never changed it when it came back down. And then another one's ethanol content, which has continued.
That's-
The
yes.
pricing's different, and it's oftentimes a lot of premium stations, at least in the Midwest here. The 91 or the premium
Yeah.
is a non-ethanol fuel, and that's
That-
going to cost more than the subsidized
Sorry,
ethanol.
I'm out of control.
That's fine. But and to go along with that, one of the comments, and I have no idea, full disclosure, if this is accurate, but they said mid-grade fuel is actually mixed at the pump. It's you have two underground tanks. There's a
Oh, yeah.
regular and there's a premium, and mid-grade literally just takes a 50-50 split.
That makes sense. It's like the chocolate vanilla swirl at McDonald's.
Yes, it is.
Nothing
Actually,
but
that's a very
the
strange
cheapest
analogy,
fuel.
but
Also, speaking of,
and yeah, they hope you don't look. The sign only shows the regular fuel price. That's a good point.
yeah, that's a very good
Fuel
point.
stations have different costs for premium.
so I'm gonna talk about IKEA for a second.
Okay.
Have you noticed that have you ever had their soft serve?
No, I don't like ice cream.
They have the best vanilla soft serve I've
that's-
ever
It's
had.
not because it's frozen yogurt.
Oh,
so
sorry.
you-
Oh,
But regardless,
okay.
frozen yogurt is the best vanilla frozen yogurt because it's like Ben and Jerry's. They just pack in extra flavor because like Jerry can't taste anything, so they just pack in flavor until he can taste it. But like,
This is so weird.
wait,
Okay.
yeah, I mentioned McDonald's, and I'm about this. We just went to IKEA the other day because to get their Swedish meatballs, which are like super cheap.
Yep. No, I
And
buy those in
I
their
was,
cinnamon
I was
rolls.
having a terrible day, so Jana got me some of their froyo, and I'm just like, this is like my favorite froyo. Like, I will like not go to other froyo places because I know IKEA exists. I'm gonna get vanilla
Mm-hmm.
anyway, and this is the best vanilla. It is so delicious.
A couple of years ago, and I'm like, I stand by. I'm not a big ice cream fan,
No.
but in the middle of the summer, McDonald's introduced like 39-cent small vanilla cones. Every time I went, I would get one, and on a hot day, like just generic vanilla soft serve is amazing.
Vanilla is so underrated as a flavor.
It really is.
And like, I will defend it to the death. I will defend vanilla ice cream and cheese pizza because there's nothing to hide behind.
Yeah.
Like if you ever
It's
want,
like buying a burger at a fancy restaurant.
exactly. Like if you are going to a Chinese restaurant, you get the orange chicken. You get the most simple thing on the menu, and if they can get that right, you know it's a good restaurant.
Yeah.
See,
Not-
as
yeah.
being lactose intolerant, I want flavor in my ice cream because
Yeah,
it's
you're gonna
not
have to like.
worth
It's not.
it.
Sure.
Yeah, you have to actually like eat, like it's gonna
Small
it's gonna
quantities
fight
of
back.
very intense.
But and then ice cream, or that's what I call
Can you
it.
close
like,
it to your mic?
Nice cream?
It's Minnesota ice cream, or I call it nice cream.
I like that name.
Their
They
name is
have
M&M
one-
Ice Cream. So
Yeah, so we call it nice cream. They have a
Trademark
location in Northeast, and then they have a location in Stillwater. And they, because they're in Northeast, they'll do, like, I think they're all dairy free, but they specifically will do, like,
vegan.
vegan.
Yeah.
And so I can have their dairy free, but it's just like, it's not, their dairy free isn't vegan, it's just lactose free. So, like, it still makes my stomach a little upset. But they've been having oat milk substitute ice cream lately.
So good.
And they'll
I
do
caught
like
that. Nice.
yeah, oat milk substitute ice cream, and then they had straight up charcoal chocolate, so like dark chocolate soft serve, and you mix those together, you get the earthy flavor. That was
So good.
And my
There's-
stomach didn't hurt. It was fantastic.
Oat milk vanilla ice
Oat
cream.
milk substitute.
Yeah, oat milk substitute vanilla ice cream is delicious and because you get the
I
nuttiness.
think it depends on what
like,
it's mixed
it's
with.
really good. Like
Because
it's
on
really,
its
really
own, that earthy flavor doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
But if it's mixed with something else where it's supposed to have that,
good. Yeah.
I think it can.
Especially
can
the
really make it
charcoal
good.
dark chocolate, because that also has an earthy flavor, and they'd melt together perfectly. Like, that was my favorite, and they only did it at the Northeast location because
I
we went to
remember, yeah.
Stillwater once.
They didn't have that.
And
yeah.
I was like, I gotta have this, and they're like, oh, that's only at our Northeast location. I was like,
Bye. I'm going to Northeast.
So
they do have a Blue Moon flavor though in
Ooh.
the summer.
I would try that.
You know,
that actually sounds excellent.
one of the worst things I've ever had at IKEA is actually their earthy potato chips because they have a pickled mushroom
Yeah.
potato chip. It was all they had. I tried one. It was awful. And so then
I'm like tasting
Oh, it's
dirty,
bad.
dirty
So
mold
this
in my
it's
mouth
exactly
right now.
that's a very accurate description. So what I did is I brought it to Good Karma, and I'm like, I just left it out there, and I just like took potato chips out of the bag and put them on a plate, and I just put them in front of the microwave. And then every few minutes, they're, oh God!
Well, it's funny because like
When somebody eats one.
he didn't go out to buy like he doesn't like potato chips, but I do. So he got these potato chips thinking I'd like them.
Well,
and
I didn't look at the
And
thing.
I didn't look at them
It cannot
because-
possibly be like who puts together a flavor combo that bad. The worst,
I
the
only
worst
like-
I was thinking was maybe dill. Like I was thinking, all right, it'll be
Dill's
dill.
fine, but like just
Yeah.
buy. What was wrong with
pickled
oil and potato
mushrooms.
slices?
But that's the thing is like dill is like that's
pickled
the worst.
mushroom powdered.
Yeah, I don't
potato
want no.
chips.
Just keep potato chips.
But I mean,
Potato
like
chips.
that's the thing is like if you
Dips are
if
fine,
you get
whatever.
potato chips, like the worst possible thing you can get is like dill. And, like that's like the worst that you can get. Like anything is like, and that's like totally fine. Like there's not like potato chips usually don't go completely insulting like that.
How did we get from mid-grade fuel pump mixing to IKEA to mushroom potato chips?
Because IKEA and it's like their mid-grade mixed froyo. But anyway, that's the worst potato chip in the world. And IKEA actually does a lot of online shipping, which now gives me the weirdest, longest segue.
Okay, I should have had faith in your
Which gives me the,
ridiculous
We were both
tangential
like, "Where are you
segue.
getting, Ryan?"
with my really weird segue to where I work. Bring a Trailer now has shipping.
I saw this, and that's very exciting because a lot of people do not want to deal with shipping.
No,
Yeah, I
and
don't
that's
wanna deal with
really,
shipping.
really nice.
Can
There's
they,
some places
Can they
that-
ship the hearse I really want from Portland?
Sure.
Oh yeah, Jan found a perfect like '96 like
it-
Cadillac
Oh, I was gonna
Fleetwood
say.
hearse.
Oh
It's
god.
I
really
want
cool.
It so bad.
It's got
it
the LT1
just got
in it.
decommissioned, so it's super spooky.
It's got 30,000 miles on it. It's got an LT1.
It like somebody needs to give me $4,000.
That is so cheap.
I know it's
Can we have a crowdfund to get Jana her hearse, please?
you
Time
know
to start up a Twitch.
Yep.
it's based off the
$100 for feed
Roadmaster,
pics.
so you know
Hell
that
yeah.
you can just plug in a C4 Corvette ECU and just like gain
I will be
power
starting up an OnlyFans.
to like get your hearse.
Yes. Exclusively.
That
I
would
will
be.
have a hearse by this summer, and that will be my summer project.
But anyway, yeah. So now we've got shipping on Bring a Trailer, and it's like the first thing that happens like within an hour they had like I think they launched it at like 11 a.m. on like Wednesday last week, and by like noon when we had our company meeting, they had like 600 quotes that had already been run before they even posted about it.
I think
that's
that's
just-
great because you're cutting out like people having to go to U-Ship, that having to go to like Montway. Like
Yeah.
getting shipping quotes sucks, and also all of those companies are extortionists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So if
it's-
you've got a for sure dollar amount that you'll ship this car for, even if it's a little higher than a regular
and
transaction,
some of them are. It's entirely based off where it is.
fine.
Like
Yeah,
I had,
As
a-
it should
the
be.
Middleman.
I had a 5 Series in Boca Raton, Florida,
Okay.
that I had listed or that I had written. And we're on a quote on it. It is like for a closed shipping thing.
We would
With-
like to know
yes.
if Bring a Trailer has a guarantee.
I personally don't know. I
They
do
better.
know that our partner that
Mm-hmm.
we work with, because we don't do our photography or the actual shipping, we partner with other companies that do that.
Okay.
And the company that we work with, they actually did their research on. They went through a lot of different potential partners, and so they actually found the one that's the most trustworthy. Because it's one of those things. It's like, we're gonna put it on our website. It's gonna be something that's actually going to be a reliable thing. So I think that I'm not sure. I think the drivers are probably independent drivers.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah, but I
as
think
long
that
as
the company itself that we work with is reputable.
well,
So-
even still, typically these quotes will come through. You'll at least pay a down payment. Usually, you'll still pay up front before your car
Yeah.
actually gets collected. The problem is when the driver delivers your car, they independently claim they never got the down payment
Yeah,
from the
and so
company, and,
that-
they extort you.
I
The
can't.
hearse was sold.
Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie.
There will be more.
There will be more.
But I would like to know some direct
I
feedback
will
on that
let
because
you know that as soon as I know. I will actually ask
it's a good
about
question
that.
to bring
Yeah,
up.
I
And
will.
I'm sure that'll just take feedback from actual transactions happening
And
too.
I think that's the
Yeah.
thing is,
because it's very common. Scott and I have both been extorted by shipping.
and
companies.
there's also this other thing is where, like with our photographers and stuff, when you put the Bring a Trailer name on things, because we generated 600 quotes in an hour with that before we even mentioned publicly that we had done it.
Yeah.
Like when you start doing things like that,
Well,
the company clamps down on the quality of their drivers.
Because you had some trouble with photographers, right? And that
Yeah.
company just straight up fired the photographer.
Yeah, they just had different photographers come in to quit using that photographer.
Yep.
Done.
And
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, BAT has a lot to lose, so they need to do it right.
And
But I'm sure they will.
More importantly, the company that we work with has a lot to lose too, because
Yeah.
they're
It's a guaranteed business with
Yeah.
high caliber clientele.
Yeah, and so some of the quotes, it's really based off like the location. Like I had a car in Boca Raton, Florida, for a closed shipment for a 5 Series. It's like $2,500 to like Minnesota.
Yeah, that's a long distance, and
Yeah.
it's an enclosed carrier.
But like an open carrier is like $1,200, I think.
That's
Like, it's-
still pretty
yeah,
good.
not-
I mean,
yeah.
the range you're looking at for open carrier for 1,500 miles should be 750 to 1,100.
Yeah.
More for distance. Enclosed should be about double that.
Yeah, and it's about what you're getting. And so what you're getting is you're just getting a known quantity here,
Yeah.
where you know what you're going to deal with. And so I think that's actually super important. I'm really excited about that, and that's going to be. It's been so helpful with
It's
actually,
another reason to
more
sell on
people,
BAT.
More people have been bidding because of that, because they're like, cool, I don't deal with that. Like,
Yeah.
screw going to
And I
bottoms.
mean, typically don't get like deals on Bring a Trailer, but like
So-
some cars, like people don't want to deal with
I
it.
was
Like,
I was actually talking. I think I can't remember if I was talking to Reese or Chad or I was talking to somebody about this, about how like people pay like bananas prices on Bring a Trailer. It's like, yeah, because you're getting a curated car where you know everything that's being said about it is factual.
the commenters found all the stuff that's wrong
Yeah,
with it.
like you're
so-
getting a known quantity, whereas like when you look at like say, yeah, you can buy a 90 Toyota Supra, like a 7M Supra, for $9,000 on Craigslist, but you're also getting questionable photos. You're getting no service records. You're getting no Carfax. You don't have any shipping. Like you really don't
You're
know
not
what
getting 15 devoted owners picking it apart in the comments.
exactly. And so
You
whereas
can buy a hearse off of Craigslist from the funeral home, or you can go to Bring a Trailer and buy a funeral party bus.
yeah,
I didn't realize that was on Craigslist. I'm guessing Bring a Trailer will not ship a car that's not listed on the site.
No, they will not. But so the thing
They're
is
just my homies, so I assume they would.
Maybe. Might be
So-
able to sneak it.
Yeah.
with
It's for Jana.
yeah, well at least you know the company that you can ship
Yeah.
through. So, but what's like what you get with Bring a Trailer is you get every single question about the quality of the vehicle is answered. So what you're getting is you're getting the best possible version of that car. And if there are issues, you know what the issues are.
And,
there's
and
somebody
not
you can
only
talk
that,
to about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
it's your time and cost. Because you look at the Montero story.
Yeah.
Like,
Seriously.
if you bought that on Bring a Trailer, none of that would have happened, and you would have paid more for the vehicle up front, but you would have paid way less in the long
Yeah,
run.
and that's the thing is like Taylor like had like anybody else would have had their life ruined over that transaction. Taylor.
Yeah, he handled it really well.
Yeah.
But like most people, they would have had to abandon the vehicle.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and so that's the thing is like, it's so like when people are like, why did this '93 EG Civic sell for $18,000, which actually happened yesterday, as I had a
Jeez.
'93 EG Civic SI sell for $18,000.
my hopes of getting an icy M1 are pretty much gone.
Yeah, I know. you
That's
really,
fine.
you should have bought
It's
Reese's.
fine.
But so it's one of those things where it's like, why did that sell for $18,000? That's totally a $10,000 car. And you're like, yeah, you're right, because you know what? Every $10,000 EG Civic SI that you've ever seen, as soon as you pull up that carpet, there's 5 different wiring harnesses that have all been spliced together. You know that every speaker is blown out. You know the car's been stolen 6 times.
If it's yellow, it's been on fire.
Yeah, well, that's only EFs, but
No, I'm gonna say it's any yellow Honda.
yeah, and luckily they stopped doing yellow after that. But like, so that's the thing is like, yeah, $18,000 on Bring a Trailer makes sense because every possible question that you could ever have has been answered. And if the reason I don't buy Hondas anymore is I have so many questions about the quality of the car.
Yep. And it's rare to find a seller that's willing to go through answering those questions
a lot of
independently.
people are the worst people. That's why, yeah, I will totally take $10,000 off of the price I pay for this car
That's why
because
I
it's a
bought the
Honda.
Accords from not Honda people.
Yeah, every Honda
Yeah.
I've bought has been like a shitbox that from not a Honda person that I know the quantity of, and it's like with this Accord, if it gets stolen, it's probably gonna be like I'll get more money than I have into it. Like it'll be fine.
Sure.
And so, yeah, Bring a Trailer, like, you get your money's worth, and this is just adding more to that value that you get from Bring a Trailer.
I was going to say, I'm confident that they will extend their formidable, record of making sure everything is copacetic with the shipping. But very excited for the first, 6 months of shipping feedback to see if anyone's talking about these drivers extorting them.
Yeah,
because it is unbelievably common.
Oh, yeah, all the time, yeah.
Yeah, that's why when Ryan showed me this first, I was like, oh my god, where is it? And he goes, it's in Portland.
Just drive it.
Darren can get it. And I go, Darren lives in Washington.
Same thing.
Close enough.
It's close
that's
enough,
like
but
Wisconsin
it's still
for me.
like, I don't
Car
know.
people don't care about that.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Darren would just be excited to drive a hearse.
If
He'd
somebody-
be so excited. That'd make us. You would probably be able to pay him. Or he'd pay you to let him drive the car back for you.
If-
He'd be so thrilled.
Like, imagine if a car friend on the West Coast found something in, Eau Claire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's right by you. I'm like, that's cool. If you need me to grab it, well, let's work out the
Yeah,
details.
like if Darren wanted something
True,
from
but
Wisconsin, I would totally drive it for him. And it's like, hey,
fine.
and so, it's one of those things. Like, if it's an exciting enough car, like if Darren finds a really, really great second generation Prelude SI, I would absolutely pay the gas to drive that to Portland for him. Why? Because that's basically a vacation and an experience that I get, and then I don't have to deal with the car. It's perfect. I will totally pay
But I
for
just
the
get
gas.
Best of all
concerned
worlds.
that what if he has a work trip or something where I can't get the car and I would have to ship it? I'm terrified of shipping vehicles.
Oh
Because,
yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
Well, even when I worked
I-
at dealerships, I would if we had to ship a car out of state, we would ship it to a sister dealership
Yeah.
because we wanted to deal with our internal shipping as opposed to
100%.
getting one of these sketchy
And I know
assholes.
you drove all the time for dealerships because.
Oh yeah,
you
I'd drive to
wanted
Council Bluffs, Iowa, which is Nebraska.
Sorry.
I'd have to do that in a day and come back.
It's amazing what you can do in a day and come back. I think I went to Tennessee to get a non-running car and was back in 24 hours.
I want to go to Tennessee because
It's
of
beautiful.
the fake Parthenon and
I didn't see that.
They have the chicken,
the
too.
pyramid of Bass Pro Shop.
Bass Pro Shops?
The Bass Pro Shop pyramid.
And they also have Tennessee hot chicken.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
we are
let's
getting
move
off
on to
off
the last
rails.
story. Since we're not on car topic anymore, I want to talk about a not car thing, but it's so cool. This is my favorite thing I want to talk about today.
Oh,
Mercury
man.
Marine is bringing out a 7.3 liter V12 outboard.
I
Yes.
love that.
That makes
That's
600 horsepower.
so dumb, and I
Parents are
love
gonna
that.
get one of these, right?
This
Oh.
is so
You're gonna
dumb.
get this and then
Ah,
keep it at your
so
parents'
Wait a
good.
minute. I think your dad's pontoon needs an engine.
I think so. And I read through this entire thing. You guys know how much I hate reading. I
Yes.
read through this entire thing. So the reason why they did this is it's actually genius. It's really for multi-outboard, super high-end Boston whalers and stuff like that,
Yeah.
where the additional drag of a third lower unit from a V8, a third
Yeah.
engine, is significantly cutting down the top speed and the fuel efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So they've found that if you put a bigger single power plant, and this actually has a 2-speed transmission in the lower unit,
Okay.
so they're able to tune the propellers for very high speed, and they're able to use the torque from both gears to get high speed and good hole shot, which is super cool. Also, the bottom third of the engine is the only part that steers. Those top parts don't move even if you're at full lock,
that's really
because the
cool.
engines are so wide you can't.
Oh, I love this so much.
So anyway, like I said, it's 600 horse. It's rated for 200 hours between oil changes and 1,000 hours between cover-off services. They're doing a 500 horse detune version for higher maintenance requirement stuff, and then in about 2 years they're doing a 750 horse supercharged version.
This is really cool.
It is so rad. It's a 7.6 liter V12.
So cool. I love
I just want to see the naked engine, but yeah, only this way bottom portion here actually steers.
I love that it sticks just upright.
It,
That's one of my favorite things.
and the packaging is you can't get it tighter than that.
That's so cool.
But yeah,
I love that.
They said it's a 20% fuel efficiency boost over triple V8s.
Yeah, your dad absolutely needs a new engine in the pontoon.
Yeah, I could not find a listed weight for this, so it might sink the 18-foot Premier, but it'd be worth it.
I need to know what the
Tape
weight
some
is.
helium balloons to it. It'll be fine.
A dirigible, I think, is probably what you would need.
Yeah. Ooh, put that on an airship.
Oh yeah, just modified the screws a little bit, but
Yeah.
just and they at least mentioned the original 100 horse tower of power. They need to bring the moniker back to this because it's a twin towers
Yes.
of power.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Yes. That'd be
Maybe the
hilarious. Oh
Twin
my
Towers
god!
Tower.
Oh, I know the livery I'd have on my boat.
No.
Oh no, Ryan!
I would have Obi-Wan.
I call my
Kenobi.
boat Inside Job.
No, I'd have Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh.
At the front of it, and at the back, I'd actually like vinyl wrap the engine covers to look like the Twin Towers, and the name of the boat would be "These blasts are too accurate for sand people." That'd be great.
That's too many syllables.
It'd be hilarious. It's a boat name. It doesn't matter. That's hilarious.
I think Inside Job is a better boat name.
Yeah.
Inside Job is a great one. I just think of every single
George
meme.
Bush's face on
Oh
the
my
side.
god, that'd be so funny. Ah.
Anyway, so we
With
got
one of
political
his
on the last story,
paintings.
but I adore this engine. I've always been fascinated by like V6, V8 outboards, the straight six.
It goes zoom, it car.
This must cost $60,000 or $70,000 each. I mean,
Worth it.
there's just no way it
For
doesn't.
each tower?
Fair. Yes.
Yeah, this has to be called the Tower of Power. This is great.
Yes. Just like they were comparing it just over and over again to the Yamaha V8s, and they're like, it's like, yeah, they're just like laying pipe on them. So.
I love this. This is great.
So anyway, I'm sorry. I know it's not car related, but it's
goes in
close
the
enough.
car.
It's a V12,
That's really rad.
and it sticks on the back of a boat. And you know, people are only buying these in multiple quantities.
Perfect.
I hate being poor.
All right. Well,
And on
anyway.
that bombshell, bye.
We'll see you guys next week.
My next vaccine. Bye.